Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries and moves us to item 7, our deputations. And we have 4 this evening. And the first one is from Craig Foster, the news director at 99.3 County FM. Craig, are you there?
Evening, everyone.
Craig, you there?
Yeah, we are here. Are you ready for us to go then?
Yeah, just if you could speak into the microphone, make sure YouTube is off, and a reminder,
Okay.
You've got 10 minutes.
We're getting some feedback somewhere, so make sure YouTube is off. I think we're good. Okay, I think that seems to have reduced any feedback. Are we okay?
Yep, I think we're
All right.
You're good to go.
Well, my name is Craig Foster. I'm the news director at 99.3 County FM. And the reason that I'm here tonight is to bring you up to speed on our emergency preparedness plan. So about a year ago, we were selected for a grant from the Community Radio Fund of Canada to put together a plan in times of emergency that ties together with your role as protecting the public when times of emergency happen. And this is where confession time, I would suggest, certainly comes in, because a year ago when I sat down and I mapped out all of these scenarios, I think I had 12 or 14 at the time. I had everything from mass evacuations to military interventions. Did not have a pandemic, of course. That kind of barged its way to the front of the list the last little while as well. And so basically, this is not a prognostication report, obviously, but it is a specific plan on how to react when there is an emergency situation and how we can help best. So for those less familiar with what we do have some visual aids. Hopefully you're able to see along the way. County FM is a not-for-profit, volunteer-driven, community-funded radio station. So you've got hundreds of people that work very hard behind the scenes that really reflect the diversity of this county, I think. It shows in our listenership, and it definitely shows in the support that we receive every year when it comes to fundraising time. And let's talk about engaging that community. We're talking about 55 original programs, all volunteer-driven. We've got over $100,000 in broadcast time for nonprofit groups that we've dispensed, thousands of community event notices, more than 6,000 guests through our doors, and of course our news department bringing some 250 media releases from the county right to the people that need to hear them. And of course it's all done by volunteers, and that's the truly amazing part. It really is. We're talking about 20,000 volunteer hours a year, 765 grapevine segments, 1,600 newscasts. It's 100 volunteers at any given time. And through all of that, we've really entrenched ourselves as an essential service. And that really started with the late, great John Mather and another legend, John Ferguson, setting up really a legitimate, trusted news department. But I think our role really came to the front with the water crisis that we had a couple of years back. Remember when that was our biggest crisis? It did give us a chance to kind of test drive our emergency preparedness long before COVID, even before this grant, in fact. It gave us a chance to work closely with your excellent county staff and make sure that everyone stayed safe, basically. And I think we all recognize the value of the station and its ability to get the word out quickly. Even if you didn't hear it on County FM, somebody told you they heard it on County FM. We've also, during the past few years, purchased and installed the Alert Ready system. That was developed with Palmorex, federal, provincial, territorial emergency management officials. Alert Ready, it basically ensures the people of the county receive emergency alerts quickly so they can take the actions they need to stay safe, and also helps with Amber Alerts as well. Which brings us to today, thanks to the Community Radio Fund of Canada, the development of a comprehensive emergency plan. So this is basically, well, it's a specific blueprint for the radio station's role in times of emergency. So when things are going down, even if it's the newest of volunteer in the station, they have basically a manual, exactly what steps to take, who to call, who plays what role in what scenario, what to do if it's not safe to broadcast from the station, these sorts of things. So that's already been put in place. The overall goal of the project is to capitalize on the station's popularity as a focal point for community news, and it's really more than that, because it's become very much a meeting place in general for the county. Especially we found with people that are newer to the county, those that have moved here really seem to turn to us for local information. And so it also improves our ability to prepare and respond to public safety issues in general. And so that, of course, is the point of this whole thing. We developed a formal response on how the station reacts to community safety situations or emergencies by producing an emergency handbook that I've alluded to, training volunteers, formally coordinating our efforts with the municipality and with the local OPP and fire department as well. And we've identified our most vulnerable areas. We want to be able to broadcast directly from the transmitter rather than from the studio when necessary, because you never know when it might not be safe to be at the station itself. There are so many sort of ramifications and sort of things you have to think through. And plus, given that the communication systems that brings the information into the station are themselves subject to power failures, well, we can even switch to a shortwave radio and an auxiliary volunteer radio communication support network. So in other words, the idea is to be prepared for any scenario. Our initial goals were to produce an emergency preparedness manual, to measure the awareness, emergency preparedness through an online survey, a series of online surveys, to produce 4 segments on different aspects of emergency preparedness for the news magazine, train at least 30 volunteers on emergency preparedness roles, hold an emergency mock drill, including integration with all integral services in the county where possible as well. Some of these things, of course, have had to be rethought, a little bit redirected because of COVID, but all of them still very much in the plans. And so far, so good on some of these key items. We've added a new volunteer emergency preparedness team. We've participated in community activities like festivals, fairs, promotional events, community service clubs. And by the way, we are still looking for more opportunities to present via Zoom or Google Meet to service groups. Due to COVID-19, we have to kind of do it that way, but we're still looking for those opportunities, FYI. We have prepared the station's emergency handbook, and we put together 2 surveys to know the community's understanding of emergency preparedness, local safety information, and the station's role. So let's talk about that survey. We went to county folks and asked them specific questions about just how ready they were in times of emergency. And the results, I would say, were pretty telling. First of all, 64% of people had no plan, and about half of them had a battery-powered radio. Another thing that we learned is that only a few of us really carry a vehicle emergency kit, a very small percentage, and only 34% had a pre-organized meeting place with their families as well. We asked some communications questions because we all rely on our cell phones so much, but do we know how to best use them in times of emergencies? Well, not surprisingly, I guess, most of you did know your way around your cell phone, but 66% of us didn't know where to go for emergency shelter. If that cell phone is down, that's probably something that we would need to know. So what if that cell phone is down? What if our tower is down? What if it's not safe to broadcast from the station? Well, we're ready for those eventualities too. We've had our backup generators serviced and repaired at the county farm center and at the tower, hoses repaired and replaced, coolant, that sort of thing. We've got a complete new communication hardware software system with the tower. We've done system upgrades with our on-air computer and software, purchased a new backup transmitter. We're actually now working on funds for an engineering study to add to our license for that. So that's another little project still on the go. And we've set up remote broadcast equipment for every volunteer news person and even some of the announcers because of COVID-19, obviously. And then we also have put in some safety barriers at the radio station as well. So there is still plenty to do. For example, where does the military fit in these situations? Obviously, our geography makes for unique evacuation situations we have on our little island. What if our exact evacuation plan was drawn up before the existence of Wellington on the Lake, for example, which, of course, is a concentrated population of people that are less mobile? Lots of things to think about, and it seems like the more that you do peel the onion, the more that you find needs to be addressed along the way. We certainly have learned along the way lately that we need to plan for our seniors. We have had to adapt our plans somewhat, ironically, because of an emergency situation. But over the next few months, we'll be integrating what we do with what you do, with what the military might do, with what emergency services needs, and maybe we even find some gaps and holes in our collective plan together. But we do have a plan, and along with your plan, we can hopefully be prepared for whatever may come our way. The county people will know exactly what to do and who to turn to when the chips are really down. And on that note, I thank you and open the floor if there's any questions.
Thanks very much, Craig. Just hang on. We'll see if anybody's got any questions. Members of council. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Craig, for a very good presentation. We don't get to hear from 99.3 County FM all that often, so I'll take this opportunity to say that in my opinion, what you're doing is perhaps the most democratic and accessible media service that we have for residents and visitors to Prince Edward County. So congratulations. And you really have, I mean, I agree with you, you really have become an essential service. And you've done it through not only what you've described to us, Craig, but also the kinds of projects you've taken on in terms of building community. And I'm thinking of the Voices from the Past, the series that's occurring now on 99.3 County FM about Prince Edward Heights. I mean, that's a pretty special project with a very special history, so thank you for that. My question is a question I've been wrestling with myself about how not-for-profits, charities, volunteer organizations are doing in this pandemic. You've just gone through a unique Facebook online auction, Craig. Can you share with us, how that went, either in terms of the process of the auction or even the result of the auction and whether it worked for you?
Sure. First of all, my favorite part of this particular fundraising effort was the creativity behind some of the items that were up to bid. And they weren't really items necessarily. There were some items certainly, but there were also a lot of experiences, and they were very county-centric. And I mentioned earlier that one of the times, whenever we go to fundraising, which of course we have to do, it's a big part of what we do, the public really tells us that they like what we're doing and that they want us to keep going. Like, they say it loud and clear. And this auction is absolutely no exception to that rule. There were some really fun items. You could go and spend the day with the police chief or rip around the track at Shannonville in a Porsche with the councillor. A lot of fun things to do, interesting items, very county-centric, and the public really embraced it again. I know that we had an idea in mind of what we thought it might generate revenue-wise, and from what I understand, it basically doubled that. So that's once again Prince Edward County not only listening to what we do, but telling us, reaching back to us and saying, listen, we are appreciating what we do. We do value your service. And they're putting their money where their mouth is consistently. And so, I mean, that speaks volumes.
Follow up?
Well, just a comment. I mean, doubling that goal, that's fantastic, Craig. So that's a really great way to celebrate your 6th birthday. Congrats.
Well, and again, let's underline the scores of volunteers, really. I mean, there are a few staffers sort of that help sort of keep things together, but none of this happens without, there's another level of gratification when people step out of the community on a daily basis, just show up and say, we want to help. Put me in, I want to do whatever, we just want to help. That happens every day, so that's super encouraging.
Councillor Bailey.
Am I on? Craig, it's Stu Bailey here. Going back to emergency preparedness, there are a number of places in the county where I can't get your signal. And I know of a number of people in my ward who cannot get your signal. Are you doing anything to try to boost that signal?
Well, one of the elements that I alluded to that will be in play is an engineering study as well on our systems that are in place. And so basically, the job of that engineer will be to poke holes, or look for holes at least anyway. When he decides that those holes are reasonably dealt with, then we sort of get that green light from an engineering perspective. So there are studies in place for that. Super valid point, because obviously if we're the meeting point for the county on this sense, we got to make sure everyone can hear us. And so we are certainly aware of those dead spots, and that will be wrapped in part with the engineering study as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Harper.
Thanks, Craig. As you well know, I'm a big fan of the station. The emergency preparedness, I think one of the things that the public listening in on would be interested just to know how the station works with the county. Obviously, we being the municipal government, we have some role in emergency preparedness as well. Maybe you could just shed a little light on how you work with us to make sure they get the most up-to-date and accurate information.
We really got to take it for a test drive in our water situation that we had a couple of years ago now. And really what happened was that it forced us to put into place a pattern of frequency for reaching out to the public, because when we were at our apex with the boil water, public safety was very much at risk, and we knew what our role was. So that allowed us to really open communication and take this for a test drive in a sort of less grand way, I suppose, in a sense. And so it was very encouraging that county and the staff very quickly recognized the value of our role as a voice. It's as much as you have the information to get to these people, we had the ability to get to it to a lot of people very quickly. And so that was where the value really surfaced for me, but also the value in the fact that we were able to communicate with your staff so regularly. And I feel like between us, we were able to keep our community safe at that stretch, and hopefully that's something we can keep doing moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No, thanks a lot, Craig. I just want to say
Yes,
that I
Mr.
enjoyed.
Mayor, please.
Sorry?
Yes, Councillor Bullock here, if I may,
Oh, okay.
please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Craig, thank you for the presentation. It's encouraging to see that people are thinking ahead. And I invite you, I do have a bit of a unique window on the military and what they may or may not do in an emergency. So I invite you to shoot me an email.
Perfect.
And see what we can establish lines of contact for you.
We have such a unique situation here, don't we, between the military presence that's so adjacent, our sheer geography. If there's a mass evacuation, for example, there are only a few exit points. There's so many elements to sort of unroll, and so that would be of huge value. I'll be sure to take you up on that.
Okay, thanks a lot, Craig. I just want to say that I very much enjoy my weekly check-ins with Lynn Pickering, which are now in their, I think, 36th or 40th week or something, which is just a reminder how long the pandemic has gone along. And I note what you said when you started, that you weren't prepared for the pandemic. Well, guess what? None of us were. But you've done
We're prepared now.
done a
I
remarkable
suppose so.
job. So if we could have a mover and a seconder to receive Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Roberts.
Mr. Harper, Roberts' motion that the deputation by Craig Foster, News Director, regarding 99.3 County FM emergency preparedness be received.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that carries. Thanks very much, Craig.
Thank you for your time.
That moves us to our second deputation from Charles Dowdell, better known as Chuck, the ED of the Prince Edward County Affordable Housing Corporation.
Charles is there. There we go.
Chuck, are you there?
I'm here. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council and county staff. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity. This will be my first time speaking to council, and I hope it's the first